The Potala Palace is a historical monument, but still preserves a special place in people's hearts today. Devout Tibetans pilgrimage here by vehicle, by motorbike, by foot, and even on hands and knees. Slowly, the first glimmer of light smiles upon the land, and on a city with more than 1,400 years of history. Songtsen Gampo moved his capital to Lhasa from Shannan in the 7th century. According to historical records, he built the city specially for the Tang Dynasty princess he married. For her part, she brought a statue of Sakyamuni to Lhasa with her, and the Jokhang Monastery was built to house it. This effectively made the monastery the heart of the city. Today, it's still its spiritual center. But now, near Drepung Monastery, we are soon enveloped in mulberry smoke, as well as the sound of horns and of scriptures being recited. A group of lamas, over 100 of them, are pulling the 30-meter painting up to the platform. Originally, the festival was purely religious. Monks would spend weeks in retreat. When they emerged, it was the custom for commoners to give them yogurt. Hence the festival's name Shotan, meaning yogurt. And so, the giant picture of Sakyamuni, the founder of Buddhism, is revealed. In the afternoon, the activities move to Lobulinka. Tibetans are traditionally a nomadic and herding people, and thus many families will camp out here for a few days, getting back to their roots. The families sing songs that tell stories of their past. And on this festive occasion, Tibetans dressed in their best will gather together and watch a Tibetan opera, which is based on Buddhist teachings and Tibetan history. It's so important to their culture that the name for Shotan Festival is also Tibetan Opera Festival. The performances last for about a week during the holidays. Tibetan opera dates back 1,400 years, almost the dawn of Tibetan civilization. For many people, a visit to Tibet is meaningless without two things: the Potala Palace and Mount Everest. And here, we meet some seemingly common folk who have some big dreams. And this is Mount Everest, the highest peak in the entire world. Once the North and South Poles had been reached by explorers, Mount Everest was their next challenge, often called the Third Pole. Attempts to climb the mountain began the first half of the 20th century. One man, George Mallory, was one of them who dared to challenge it. When asked, "Why do you climb the mountain?" he said, "Because it is there." Unfortunately, he didn't come back from Everest. It was the last time Mallory was observed. From Lhasa, we continue west to Jiangzi of Rikadze district, which means the fertile land in Tibetan. The sights along the way are spectacular. Here the environment is harsh and at a challenging high-altitude natural environment. However, there are the small villages that dot the landscape and managed to catch our eye. What a crazy journey! So far we've been past mountains and grasses and flowers and deserts, and the weather's been changing all over the place. You got sunny weather, you got clouds, wind, even we passed through a sandstorm. So I wonder what Rikaza will actually be like once we get there, but we'll have to be bouncing for a few more hours over this multivaried scenery before we get there. Have to wait. Here we find the famous mountain Zongshan. It was once the location of the local government of Jiangzi County and has a group of castles located on a hill in the urban area. Jiangzi is well known as Hero Town because of the Tibetan soldiers and people who once took part in a fierce battle to defend it. Fort Ruin of resisting British Army is located on that mountain. It used to be an ancient castle where the Tibetans fought against the British Army's invasion a century ago. China is a country of 56 minorities, but they are all united and at peace. Outside is Baiju Monastery. It's a charming place which remains its special culture and natural remoteness. The monastery was built in the 15th century and is the headquarters for 3 sects of Buddhism, which had experienced rivalry for a long period of time. The monastery is the only one known to house monks from different orders in harmony. As a result, its structural style, deities enshrined, and murals are very unique. It's also unique in combining stupa and temple, with temples in stupa and stupas in temples. Deemed as the symbol of the monastery, the spectacular Kumbum Stupa consists of hundreds of chapels and layers, housing about 100,000 images of various icons. The wealth of murals are all beautifully painted in different styles.
Today, this is all that remains of Gugay. Its capital city, Separang. The grand vision of the first kings of Gugay is reflected in this extraordinary city, literally carved into the side of a mountain. Soaring to the heavens, the height of a modern 80-story skyscraper. It is even today one of the largest structures in Tibet. Along its narrow lanes, you can almost hear the echoes of the many people who toiled to gouge a city from this impenetrable mount of clay. A labyrinth of tunnels and stairs leads vertically 300 meters to the very top of the structure. The view is breathtaking. But this is only a small part of the once mighty kingdom of Gugay. At its height, it was twice the size of Great Britain. Experts believe that somewhere here lies the answer to one of the most intriguing archaeological enigmas in Asia. Who exactly built this extraordinary structure? And what could have possibly led to the downfall of this civilization? In its day, Gugay was the Florence of the East. At a time when Genghis Khan's Mongols were advancing into Central Asia and Europe, and the Crusades were being fought in Palestine. Gugay was a flourishing center of commerce, art, religion, and political power. It dominated a strategic crossroads on the Silk Road between Central Asia and China, a crossroads for the numerous caravans trading gold, silk, wool, and spices. Gugay was the center of sophisticated art and ideas, a magnet for artisans and intellectuals. It was at the heart of a religious renaissance and home to some of the greatest Buddhist thinkers of its time. Yet having prospered for 7 centuries, this magnificent kingdom disappeared in 1630, leaving only an enigmatic structure, the very last remaining clue to a lost civilization. These are the first ever photographs of the Gugay kingdom. They were captured in 1933 by Italian explorer Giuseppe Tucci. In them, we see the remains of what was once a vibrant civilization. Tucci was the first Westerner to document these magnificent ruins. When his guides first showed him the capital city of Saparang, Tucci was awestruck by what lay before him. He wrote, "In front of us, the whole hillside is covered with tremendous ruins. A dead city, which seems to be keeping vigil over a tormented waste of stone." Tucci's visit to the ruins of Gugay unearthed no clues to its demise. The kingdom of Gugay occupied the arid western arm of Tibet. Saparang is a 5-day drive west of the Tibetan capital of Lhasa. It is an arduous journey across unpaved roads in some of the least inhabited and harshest landscapes on the planet. The hardship and harshness of nature has forged a unique spirit in the people who live here. Within this nearly inaccessible structure are clues that hint at what life in Gugay must have been like. This is the Red Temple. Behind these ancient doors, some of Buddhism's finest murals tell a story of one of the greatest civilizations in Asia, one that in its heyday was unsurpassed across the Himalayas. These murals document life in Gugay and present a pictorial history of this once great kingdom.
The murals of Gugay are simply stunning. Not only is it great artwork, but they encapsulate the experience of the kingdom, its culture, its peoples, its society, the ways in which they did business, the ways in which they moved about and traded. These are all represented in the mural. This is not merely artwork, this is history in visual form.
Over the centuries, Tibet and its people have seen great upheavals. It began as a unified empire. Then around the year 850, the empire fell apart after a series of brutal civil wars. What emerged from the battles and the bloodshed was a separate kingdom, Gugay. Saparang lay amidst a vast and arid desert. In order to guarantee Gugay's survival, the king was forced to spend much of his resources transporting water to the city and to the farms that it depended on. The ancient irrigation canals, wells, and even a 20-kilometer-long aqueduct stretching from the Sutlej River to the citadel can still be seen amidst the ruins, evidence of the massive undertakings to keep this oasis alive. With their power and livelihood secure, the royals proceeded to live a life full of absolute opulence. Amazingly well-preserved, centuries-old murals speak of this religious convention, a spiritual gathering which planted the first seeds from which Tibetan Buddhism was reborn. From that point onward, Gugye became the spiritual and cultural heart of Tibetan Buddhism. Today, Buddhism is still an integral part of everyday life in Tibet. It is an ancestral gift that permeates all levels of society, influencing every aspect of the Tibetan's life. Tibetans still flock to Gugye even today, not so much for the temples as for the wondrous peak towering over Saparan, the sacred Mount Kailash.